Hello, and welcome to the So You Want to Be a Marine Biologist podcast, where we learn about the ocean, share sea stories, and explore ocean careers. I'm your host, Kara Muzia. Let's dive into today's episode. Hey, do you want to help the oceans? Have you considered a career in marine biology, but maybe just aren't sure where to start? Head on over to my website, marinebio.life, and subscribe to my newsletter. When you subscribe, you'll receive a free PDF download where you'll learn the 7 steps to becoming a marine biologist without the degree. Hello, sharks and minnows, whales and fry, and all denizens from the deep. Welcome to today's show. Today we're doing things a bit differently and interviewing 2 people in one show. Double bang for the buck. Today I'm chatting with Emily Cunningham and Daniel Moore, both marine biologists hailing from the United Kingdom. It seems that Daniel and Emily have done a bit of everything from graduate school studying deep sea sharks and dolphins to managing teams in Indonesia and saving the UK's wild waters through grant writing. Daniel and Emily do a really great job of highlighting how marine biology isn't just a career, but can be a lifestyle, one with some really, really magical moments and the ability to make great impacts. Without further ado, here is the dynamic duo of Emily Cunningham and Daniel Moore. Daniel and Emily, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Hello. Thank you for having us.
I think it might be interesting having 2 people on the show.
Yeah, we'll try not to talk over each other.
No guarantees.
Okay, sounds good. So, how did you guys meet initially?
So we both went to Bangor University, which is a university in North Wales in the UK. We both did the same degree, but we were a couple of years apart, and we actually met because we had the same tutor. So we were in tutorials, though they were mixed age groups. And then I also met Daniel because Daniel taught me how to dive. So Daniel was my dive instructor, and that's where the romance began.
Yeah, might have abused my instructor kind of right there. But...
Yeah, staff, teacher-student relationship. But no, it's all good. We've been together 10 years now, so. Yeah.
Oh, that's so fantastic. So, Daniel, what got you into diving then? How did you become a dive instructor?
So I learned when I was just a teenager, and it was just something that my uncle did at the time, and I was curious and went along, and then learned firstly in a pretty grim pool, so indoor swimming pool with sort of pretty grim things floating at the bottom of it. And then my introduction to kind of more open water was cold quarries and lakes in the UK, but somehow that didn't deter my passion and interest, and eventually made it into the sea and loved it so much that I kind of quickly went through the qualifications, and then when I was at university passed my instructor's exam, so started teaching while I was studying for my undergraduate.
It's a great job to have while you're studying to be a marine biologist.
Yeah, it seems to fit pretty well.
So, Emily, what made you decide that you wanted to get dive certified?
I think it was something when I went to university, and you in the UK, in your first week, our first week of university is called Freshers Week. So your first year of university, you're called a fresher. So I went to the Freshers Fair in Freshers Week and saw the dive club. And so in the UK, our dive kind of the scheme that we have, it's called British Sub-Aqua Club. So it's kind of a club setup. So lots of universities and towns have them. And there was one for Bangor University. So I thought, oh, that's something. I'm starting my marine biology degree. I would love to be able to dive and experience what I'm studying. Not really knowing what I was letting myself in for, but I went along, and they kind of became my university family, my club, and it really just opened my eyes to how magical the wildlife of the UK is. I think before I went to university, I just assumed that all wildlife was elsewhere, that I had to go to cool tropical places to see cool things, and actually there was so much just on the doorstep where I learnt to dive, and that really kind of changed my life actually.
That's wonderful. So where did you learn to dive, and what wildlife did you see that kind of changed your mind?
So like Daniel, most of us who learn to dive in the UK, your first kind of open water dives are in a quarry. So we have lots of flooded quarries, which is not the most inspiring place, but it's, you know, it's calm waters to do your skills. They've normally got kind of an assortment of sunken buses and motorbikes and gnome gardens and things for you to look at whilst you're learning. But then my first dive in the sea, the visibility was about 10 centimeters, and I think I saw a starfish, but it didn't really matter. It was just I was diving in the sea, and diving in this place where I went to university was the place where I'd gone on holiday every year as a child, and to be able to experience the underwater environment was magical. Somewhere that feels familiar, and then you go into the sea and you realise there's a whole new world kind of just beyond what you can normally see. And then towards it to 5 open water dives, and my fifth open water dive, when we got to the dive site, there was dolphins. And I think that for me just was like, wow, I didn't know any of this was here. And if I hadn't have gone diving, I would never have encountered that. And just, yeah, it opens a whole new world. And I think you don't have to be able to dive to do that. If you are able to dive, it's something that if you can do, pursue. But snorkeling, at the very least, pretty much everybody can get a mask and snorkel and get into some water and actually see, particularly if you're interested in marine biology, it's a way to really experience what you study, because it's totally different than reading about it in a book.
I feel like we're perhaps painting a bad picture of UK diving, but it's actually incredible.
Yeah.
I've dived some pretty awesome places around the world, but still my favourite dives have been in UK waters.
Mine too.
And in fact, the best visibility I've ever had underwater still remains to be in the UK. It's yet to be beaten. That was a dive in Scotland, and it was 50-metre visibility. And that's yet to be surpassed anywhere elsewhere.
Yeah. Wow, 50 meters is pretty impressive. Where were you diving, and what were you seeing?
So this was at a place called Scapa Flow. So it's in the Orkney Islands off the north coast of Scotland, and it's where there's a large collection of sunken battleships that were scuttled at the end of World War I. So they're German battleships. And this particular dive that had the incredible visibility was just in the entrance to Scapa Flow. So it's quite well flushed with sort of clear Atlantic water. The wreck we were diving on was sort of sat on the seabed at sort of 45 meters. And we jumped into the water off the boat, looked down below us, and you could see the whole wreck just laid out on the seabed just from the surface. And as we sort of descended and you sort of realized what the kind of horizontal visibility was like, it was mind-blowing. And I think the most incredible thing for me was that you could see what life we had in the UK that you don't normally see. Normally you get sort of 5-10 meters of visibility and you see the occasional fish. And here I could see whole shoals of fish circling around this wreck. And you kind of usually are used to those sort of pictures from sort of dive magazines that show warm tropical sites. And to see that at home in the UK was just mind-blowing.
Yeah, cold water usually is very nutrient rich and it has lots of life, but it's not something that a lot of people see. That's wonderful that you guys were able to experience that and see that. So how did you know, and this is for both of you, you pick who goes first. How did you know you wanted to be a marine biologist? So you both went to university ready to study this. Was there a defining moment that kind of solidified that, or were you just like, that sounds cool, I'll try that?
Yeah, so for me, there was definitely a defining moment, and that was during my sort of my learning to dive phase. So before that, I was making university choices, and I knew that I was just interested in sort of general science. And in the UK, you select specific science courses, so you don't sort of do your sort of broad study that you do in the US and then focus later. You focus quite early in the UK. And so my university courses that I was applying for were sort of paleontology, genetics, and then I had this odd one that was marine biology in there. And I didn't really know which I wanted to go for. And then I learned to dive, and as soon as I got into the sea, I knew which course that I was going to go for, and it was marine biology. So, yeah, that was it for me.
For me, it was a lot earlier. I have known I wanted to be a marine biologist since I was about 8. It was all I ever wanted to be. I think it's one of those careers that everyone has a little phase where they say, oh, I want to be a marine biologist, and then you grow out of it. And I think my family expected me to grow out of it, but it was always what I wanted to be. I don't think there was necessarily a defining moment. I've just always been obsessed with the sea. I think my happiest childhood memories are spending time rock pooling, paddling in the sea, exploring, going to aquariums, and that kind of thing. And I think it's always just been a little bit of an obsession I remember when I was at high school and you go for your careers talks and they'd say, what do you want to be? And I'd say, I want to be a marine biologist. And they'd say, no, you need to pick a real job. That's not a thing. Because where I'm from, that, nobody goes to do that. I was the first one in my family to go to university, and I certainly wasn't from a background where that was normal. People just sort of stayed where we're from. But actually, it just was this, I think obsession would probably be a fair description. And that was always what I was going to be, no matter what. And I'm really proud of the fact I can now call myself one.
Yeah, that's wonderful. So you both graduate from university with your bachelor's, and you both continued on and got your master's degree. And Daniel, you're pursuing your PhD right now. So what made you both decide to continue on?
Well, I think we both enjoyed our undergraduate degrees so much. It was never really an option to not continue. I think studying for our degrees only made it that obsession a little bit worse. We just wanted to know more, so it was never an option to not continue, I think.
So you had a really cool master's, didn't you? And then
I was particularly lucky with what I studied for my master's project. So I looked at deep sea sharks, in particular, looking at sort of population biology and how we age sharks. So if you take, for instance, sort of the big sharks that we all know and love, great white sharks, if you want to age them, then it's relatively simple. You take a vertebrae and they have rings, just like a tree. So you can count the rings and know how old the shark is. When you look at deep water sharks, the ossification of their bones is much less. We all know that sharks have cartilaginous skeletons, but they have a degree of ossification and hardness. But when you go deeper in the water column, that becomes less and less. So those growth rings don't stand out, or at least can't be seen very easily. So my master's was looking at how we make those growth bands stand out, and I was successful and able to do that in some species that hadn't been done before. And it was a sort of a fascinating project that just made me realize how much we don't know yet and how much there is still to do out there. So it was like, well, if I can find out about this and discover this, what else can I find out about, and what else can I learn that's new that sort of humanity doesn't yet know? So it was just really exciting and drove me on to do more.
What species of shark were you looking at, and how did you actually sample?
Okay, so I was looking at a few different species from sort of different depths in the water column. So my shallowest shark species was a small shark called the blackmouth dogfish, and it was found about 500 meters below the ocean surface. And then the next species I was looking at was a species called velvet dogfish, found at about 1,000 meters below the surface. And then my deepest species were actually, in fact, a couple of small cat shark species, things like the Iceland cat shark and the ghost cat shark. And they are found about a mile below the surface, so about 1,500 meters below the surface. And the way that we caught those was from a research vessel out in the North Atlantic, and we towed a trawl behind the ship. So it was incredible to watch. Actually, they control this trawl just by pulling on the warps, which are the ropes attaching it to the ship, ever so slightly. And because of the depth that you're trawling at, so the trawl might be a mile below the surface, but it means it's about 3 miles behind the ship. And they're controlling it and flying it down these canyons using computers that just tweak these warps just ever so slightly to get it to fly down these canyons. It's incredible to sort of see how they do that. But that's how we caught our sharks. We obviously then brought them up to the surface. Unfortunately, they are dead by the time they get to the surface because of the intense pressure changes. So the barotrauma tends to kill them. But then I was extracting the vertebrae from the sharks and then cleaning them up back in the lab and attempting to age them.
And you were successful.
I was successful in some of the species, not the very deepest. I just couldn't get those to work. But on the shallower species, we used like a combination of different dyes and acid baths to kind of etch in those growth bands so that it became more visible, and so that we were able to record them.
What's the oldest shark that you caught?
I think the oldest shark was actually quite young, probably about 12 years old.
And what's the age range on those sharks? Do you know? Hey, Kara here. I hear it all the time. How do I become a marine biologist? Or my niece wants to help the ocean. Where does she even start? I hear from students, yes, and also nurses, HR professionals, and other mid-career folks who wonder if they could still make their dream of working with sea turtles or sharks come true, wondering if it's too late to answer the ocean's call. Here's what I've learned after 20 years in the field and hundreds of interviews. There's no straight line, no magic degree, and no gatekeeper. You create the path forward. If this sounds overwhelming and vague, I've created 2 tools to help you stop wondering what if and start moving forward with clarity and purpose. The first is my free guide, Be a Marine Biologist Without the Degree. Over 1,000 people have already downloaded this guide and taken their first step towards ocean impact. Inside, you'll find 7 concrete, doable actions to help you get started, whether you're just exploring or ready to make a change. Then there's the Ocean Blueprint. This is a 30-day self-paced course that helps you build your unique path into ocean science and conservation without quitting your job or going back to school. Inside the Ocean Blueprint, you'll get daily prompts to explore your interests, skills, and next steps, a structure that turns overwhelm into real momentum, and a bonus section to root your work into ocean connection. You don't have to wait for a degree, a perfect plan, or permission. Whether you're wading in or ready to take the deep dive, these tools are here to help you move from dreaming to doing. The ocean called. Are you ready to answer? Links in the show notes and on my website, karagracemuzia.com. I can't wait to see the waves you'll make.
Oh, now you're asking. It was some years ago. I mean, they're all quite small sharks. They don't live particularly long. They have fairly short lifespans. I think you're looking at somewhere sort of 15 years or something like that.
Okay, so kind of the older end of their lifespan.
Yeah, definitely.
Fantastic. And Emily, what did you study with your master's?
So my master's research was looking at the spatial ecology, which means where things live during their lives, of bottlenose dolphins in the Irish Sea, which is the sea between Wales and Ireland on the British Isles. So it sounds very glamorous. I did do 3 months of very exciting fieldwork, which was taking photos of bottlenose dolphins' fins. So their fins have a unique pattern of marks. So when dolphins play fight with each other, they get these nicks and notches and scratches on their dorsal fin. So how each one's dorsal fin, it kind of acts like a fingerprint. So we can identify individuals using their fins. So I collected photos, and then I also looked at a catalogue of photos that had never been analysed before. So this catalogue of photos was taken in between 1989 and 1994. And I matched these fins from this old catalogue with the fin images I took, and also another catalogue that other organisations, so we had a couple of organisations that generously contributed their catalogues. And from that, I discovered that the same dolphins were using exactly the same area 20 years later. So mums were still coming back with their calves. We knew it was a nursery area, but we didn't know how long that they'd been coming there. And this was showing that 20 years had passed. So when I did it, we had data from 2010, and we'd found from between 1990 and 2010, same females are coming and having their babies and raising their calves in the same area. That area was a protected area, so it just added to the reasons why it needed to stay protected, and that organisation that I worked with is also using that to help protect and conserve the dolphins as well. So the fieldwork was amazing, but kind of the reality sometimes of research is a lot of hours spent at a computer. So I looked at around 10,000 images of bottlenose dolphin fins. I knew them all off by heart by the end. I knew them all as if they were close friends, I think, by the end of it. But it was kind of cool when I would do subsequent field work. So I carried on running winter surveys for the organisation in question, and I'd be out on the boat and a dolphin would pop up and I'd know exactly who it was and where it had been and how it had spent its life, because you can recognise this pattern of notches and nicks on their fin. So it was really interesting, and I have kept that skill, so I have continued to work in photo identification of cetaceans since. So my latest piece of research is looking at humpback whales. So with those, we use the marks on the flukes on the underside of their tails to also look at who they were and where they'd been during their life. So it's nice to have that combination of field work and the lab work. It's nice to actually get to see your study subjects in their natural habitat too, as well as just looking at them on your computer screen.
Absolutely. It's always wonderful when you can get out and get in the field and then also see beautiful wildlife, especially dolphins, because I think everybody has a little bit of a soft spot for dolphins.
Absolutely.
So I didn't realize that about whale flukes. They also serve as more or less like a fingerprint. They have individual nicks and marks that identify them.
So different species, different things. So humpback whales, the underside of their flukes, and also a combination of the fluke, the fin, and any markings on their tummy. But it's mostly just the fluke markings that we use. So that's kind of pigmentation and marks, sometimes from orca bites and things like that. That's how we identify individual humpback whales, different species. So sperm whales can be identified from notches in their flukes as well. It depends on how well marked they are, but it can be used as a way to sort of track them in a non-invasive way through their life. It doesn't disturb the animal to take a photo, so rather than having to tag them, which just I don't have an issue with tagging as long as it's done in a sensible, well thought out way with a good research goal in mind. But actually, photo ID can be a nice non-invasive way of studying these ocean giants, particularly when they're passing through an area and there's people taking photos anyway.
Absolutely. That's awesome. How much more difficult is it to get a photo of a fluke or a fin of a whale versus getting one of the dorsal fin of the dolphin?
Much harder. So bottlenose dolphins are, there's a great variety in their personalities. So for example, in my study population, some of them were very cheeky, flirty chaps. So they would come to the boat at the first chance. They'd be straight over, checking you out, really interested. And those ones, there's a bias towards them because they have that pro boat behavior. They'll come straight to the boat you're on. You get really good fin shots of them. And then unfortunately, there'll be the shy ones who, as soon as they see a boat, they swim in the other direction. So it's very hard to get those fin shots. But actually, as a general rule, bottlenose dolphins are a lot easier to get those fin shots of. Humpback whales are mixed. If they just happen to be fluking near you, then you can get that fluke shot, but it is difficult to get a good fluke shot. Sometimes you'll get a little bit of a corner of a fluke and that's all you've got to work with. But that's why we try and use the combination of the fins, because a dorsal fin of a humpback whale is easier to get, but unfortunately they're not as unique as with a bottlenose dolphin. So sometimes it's quite hard to conclusively use that. A lot of humpback whale fins look like each other, so they have to have something really distinct, really individual for you to be confident that is definitely the animal that you're looking at. So there's always an element of human error in there, but we do use we have at least two independent views on each. So if I make a match of two whales or two dolphins, at least two other scientists will also have a look at those images to confirm the match before we'll say conclusively, yes, this whale/dolphin was seen in these two places.
Okay, check and recheck. That makes sense.
Yes.
It's pretty incredible that you were able to identify the bottlenose dolphin by their dorsal fins, though. I'm sure you weren't asked to have on the boat, just like, oh, no, that's Henry.
Yeah. It is nice. And when you see them with the calf for the first time, so where we were was a nursery area, so you've perhaps seen the female in the winter and she was on her own, and then you'd see her in the summer and she had a calf with her. You'd be like, oh, that means she's come here to give birth, and in that short time she has given birth. And we'd see days old calves. They're so small and they still have fetal folds, which is where they've been folded up in the womb, so they have these little stripes down their side. So that's pretty magic when it's probably the first boat that it's met, and you're getting to see it when it's very new and not very good at swimming and not very good at breathing, but gorgeous.
Oh, that's so adorable. So you both have since graduated with your master's, and what happened after you graduated? Were you able to find jobs right away, or did you it kind of seems like you guys set out to do your own thing, more or less. So what is life since graduation kind of started out as?
After I graduated, because I was 2 years ahead of Emily during undergrad, I volunteered in the lab that I did my master's in, and then off that was able to get employed for a couple of years working on a couple of different projects looking at different fish species, one looking at kind of an estuarine fish species that's become locally extinct in parts of the UK, and trying to understand how we can grow it in captivity that we could then re-release it back into these areas where it's gone extinct. And then another project looking at a sea trout, which is a salmonid type fish, and trying to use stable isotopes to understand where this fish goes when it goes out to sea. It has, part of its life in the river and part of its life at sea. So that was really interesting. And then that enabled sort of me to sort of stay in the same place where Emily was when she was finishing off her master's.
Yeah, and then when I finished my master's, in the last sort of month or so of my study, I started looking for jobs, and I knew by that point, so I did a research master's, so it was 12 months on one project. And when I started that, I thought that I wanted to do a PhD, and I realized through the course of that actually I knew that pure research wasn't for me, and so the PhD idea went out the window. And during my undergraduate and my master's, which I did at the same university, I had been volunteering with a local wildlife charity and just loved it, absolutely loved it, and realised that my heart was in using science to conserve species. So I knew I wanted to go and work in kind of more applied science, preferably conservation. So when I was finishing up and looking for jobs, because Daniel had then settled and had a job in North Wales where we were based, I was looking for jobs in that area and found a job with the Environment Agency, which is the government's one of the government's departments for the environment in the UK. So I got a job there as sort of entry-level environment assistant, working on lots of coastal environmental management, which was a really great kind of start to my career, and I was very lucky to get the job. It allowed us again to be in the same place for the time we wanted to be there. Yeah,
but I think the key to both of us in getting those positions we both had was volunteering.
Yeah,
and I'd recommend that to anyone who thinks they want a career in marine biology, and to start early. Like even when you start your degree, that is a great time to volunteer with someone who you might potentially want to work with later when you finish. I think a lot of students don't realize, but when you're at university, you have a lot of free time, perhaps more than you perhaps realize. And that time is you know, rare afterwards when you have to sort of pay bills as such. So even just giving a little bit of time each week to go and volunteer is really important. But I'd say there's one key thing with volunteering is commit to something that you can definitely hold to. And don't let people down. You don't want that black mark against your name. But so be realistic. If you can only do one afternoon every month, then that's all you can do. Do that and stick to it. And build yourself up on a good name early on. Yeah,
I think that's a really important point, because when we do careers talks, we say to people, look around the room. There's 100, 200 people graduating with exactly the same degree as you, and you're all going to be looking for jobs in the same place. And then you think there's 10 or more universities in the UK that do marine biology, so you multiply that number by 10, and you are all going to be walking away with a BSc in marine biology. You need something on your CV that sets you apart. So when we both graduated, it wasn't just our degree on our CV, it was this volunteering experience and a reference. So both of us had a good reference me from the charity and Daniel from the lab that he'd volunteered in. And that, I think, it just shows that it gives you some backup to what you say you're passionate about. So saying you're passionate about marine conservation or marine biology is one thing, but then having some proof and another independent person to back you up, that goes a long way. And I know for me, when I started my job and they tell you like, oh, the reason you got it was because it wasn't just your degree on your CV, you had something to show as well. So and if nothing else, volunteering is fun. You get to experience some really cool things and meet amazing, interesting, inspiring people who help you. When you first start out, I don't know what I want to do in marine biology.
You get to test stuff out that you may or may not like, and you get to try that out without having to commit to a 6-month, 12-month contract of work or something. you can see if that's for you, and if it's not, then you can try and volunteer for something else.
Yeah.
That's wonderful advice. That's something I continually tell people because it is so important. And I think you make good points about one being holding yourself accountable and actually committing to something that you can actually hold yourself to. But also, if it doesn't work out, then it's not like you committed to a job that you're going to quit after it's fine, 3-6 months down the line, if you need to leave or you decide that you want to pursue something else that's interesting, you can kind of leave on a good foot. Whereas if you were employed, that's kind of a short-term employment unless that was already, the contract. So great advice. So one thing I definitely wanted to bring up with you guys, you both just got back from Indonesia and I'm loving your photos and I'm slightly jealous. So can we chat about your time in Indonesia and what is Operation Wallacea? And I might be butchering the name. And
No, that was bang on.
Okay. And how you guys kind of got involved with that?
Okay, so Operation Wallacea is an organization that's based in the UK but runs sort of conservation and science expeditions all around the world, in 15 different countries, in fact. They mainly concentrate on sort of tropical regions, but they have a few kind of Mediterranean or semi-temperate regions as well now. And they run expeditions for school groups as well as for university volunteers and sort of students who want to do their undergraduate dissertations or master's theses with them. They also have PhD students doing their research out on these different sites. And the big strength about Operation Wallacea is that it has a huge network of academics who go and use these field sites for their own research. And whilst there, these academics support students at the sites, and there's a real sort of close interaction between scientists and students. So students can build up a big sort of experience of different research techniques and how field research is done. So during my PhD, one of the things that I enjoyed the most was planning my fieldwork. Strangely, almost as much as actually doing the fieldwork, the planning was the exciting bit for me. So I sort of realized that this is something I'd want to try more of, and I'm very lucky that the funders of my PhD allow me to take some time off and do like an industrial placement. So I approached Operation Wallacea with sort of the question, can I come and work for you for a bit? And they were really supportive of this. And so I've been working with them now for nearly 7 months since January. I'm just about to finish with them. It's my last week in the office before I head back to finishing my PhD. So what I've been doing while I've been working with Operation Wallacea is overseeing a couple of their rainforest camps in Southeast Sulawesi on an island called Bhutan. It's strange being a marine biologist but operating in the rainforest, but I think one of the key sort of hopes for me doing this placement was to get sort of management experience and experience of running science that is certainly challenging to me because it's not my sort of background field, and so I totally got this experience. There's something that was new and challenging in a different environment, different field. And it's been incredible, actually, some of the things I've seen, the people I've met, and then I get to take all those sort of skills and experiences that I've built up during this time and sort of then go back to my PhD knowing that I can take those skills forward. So it's been really useful and really good.
Wonderful. So what was your day-to-day like while you were in Sulawesi, or was there a typical day-to-day?
There is definitely not a typical day-to-day. My sort of field season out there, which was 9 weeks in total, is hugely varied. And being in a sort of managerial position, I was sort of hopping between different airports and bringing students in, and then sort of going into the forest camps and talking to the scientists and make sure all the science is running correctly, dealing with any sort of personnel issues, logistics issues. During the whole 9 weeks, I never stayed in one place for more than 2 days. So it was quite tiring, lots of on the move. But say For the days that I would be in the rainforest, I'd typically wake up at sort of probably about 5:30 in the morning and sort of check that the bird scientists who were going out and survey early, that they were all okay and had everything they need and were going out early. Then I'd sort of have breakfast about 6. Then there'd be various other surveys going out throughout the morning. So we'd have surveys going out for sort of megafauna, so that would be sort of monkeys and other amazing mammals that we have in the region. There'd be habitat surveys going out who would be looking to quantify the amount of carbon in different parts of the forest. The reason we want to know that is that it can be useful for sort of potentially tapping into funding from sort of carbon trading schemes, that sort of thing, for conservation. There would be surveys going out for her pettifauna, so that's the snakes and reptiles. And so you come and spend your morning sort of making sure that all the surveys are going out okay and everything is running smoothly. Lunch at midday. The afternoon was usually a little bit of downtime, maybe a chance to chat to people coming back from surveys, see how it's gone, sort out any issues and make sure everyone's happy. And then in the evening, there'd be a load more surveys going out into the forest because just like in the marine environment, the animals that you see out and about completely change when the sun goes down. So there'd be bat surveys going out. There'd be different types of herpetofauna out and about. So there'd be more surveys for them. So it was hugely varied, incredibly exciting. You never knew what you were going to see from a day-to-day basis, but it was really, really interesting.
That sounds fascinating. An exhausting and fascinating 9 weeks. I love it.
Yeah, I'm definitely still recovering, but it was a fantastic experience.
And was this a paid position while you were out there?
Yeah, so this was in the way that my PhD funders have continued to fund me to do this placement. So I'm quite lucky in that my funding comes from the UK government. And so certainly if anyone wants to do a PhD in the UK, I would certainly think when they're looking to apply for a PhD that make sure they know where that funding is coming from. I've certainly seen lots of people doing PhDs who spend most of their time applying for funding to keep going. But if you know that you've got a good funding pot right from the beginning, it gives you a lot of open opportunities. And it's a good thing.
Yes, that's kind of why I brought it up. There's a lot of people that have, big goals for their education and don't really know how they're going to fund it. And so they spend lots of time trying to write grants or finding grants or any sort of funding. So that's wonderful that you have such constant funding to be able to kind of do all of this and kind of diversify your portfolio a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, there is certainly still being a large element of applying for funding. So that my sort of topic is genomics in bottlenose dolphins, and using sort of next generation sequencing techniques uses a huge amount of funding. In fact, most of my actual sort of research funding, the allocation for that has been used up on sequencing. So all of my field work has been funded through grant applications. So there's definitely still some element of that. But I think
that's a good skill to have to learn. Yeah. If you want to go into science or conservation, a significant proportion of your daily time budget is thinking about how you continue to fund either your research or your work. So I mean, I think as long as you have that core funding, it's almost the best situation to be in. You know you've got the money to continue your PhD, but actually to do that, the field work, to go to conferences, etc., it gives you that skill of having to source funding, to seek out calls for applications and then go through that application process, which in itself a really important skill to have once you graduate either from your master's or from your PhD and going out into the real world, whether that real world is academia or my world, the conservation world.
Whether it's science or conservation, we all need money to do the work we do, so it's got to come from somewhere. Yeah. And like Emily says, it's a really important skill.
So you both just brought up a couple different points that I wanted to cover. Emily, you have lots of experience getting funding. You have secured over £5 million of funding. That's incredible and impressive. How did you do this? Where did you apply? And what was your funding covering? It's all to conserve the UK wildlife, correct?
Yes. So my work over the last sort of 3 years has become very project development focused. So after I graduated, and I did some interesting work on a couple of places abroad, and then I started to work in UK conservation. So I worked in marine policy. So I worked for a national organisation working to get areas of the sea designated as marine protected areas. I managed lots of surveys, and I loved it. But unfortunately, it meant living a long way away from Daniel. So Daniel was about 3 hours away doing his PhD. So I wanted some kind of work where we could be in the same place, because although I'm ambitious, my relationship's also very important to me. So I had taken, I knew which bit of the country I wanted to work in. So I just went ahead and told all of the organizations working in that area that I wanted a job, and waited to see if anybody needed anyone. So I think one piece of advice I would say to people is be bold, and don't be a wallflower. Don't be afraid of making yourself known. You know, if you've got good skills, make sure people know that you're out there. And actually, off the back of that, I was approached about a role, which was to develop a large scheme in a part of England that's very underserved by kind of marine conservation. So although there's a lot of very interesting marine life, it's very post-industrial. So it used to be a huge centre of coal mining. So there was a lot of pollution issues. It was once the most polluted coast in Europe. And as a result, it hadn't been the focus of much research or of much conservation effort. So I was approached by an organisation working there to put together a large scheme and bring together partners. So over about a year period, I worked to bring together 15 different organisations, which range from small local community groups all the way up to the relevant government departments that work in marine and coastal management and conservation. And built a project which is basically a scheme of around 30 individual projects that aim to either do practical conservation or work on increasing marine awareness and stewardship. And the area that this will take place in is a really special bit of the country, but not somewhere that people tend to go. It's, even the people that live there, I did a lot of engagement with communities, and they're people that have lived there their whole lives and never been down to the beach, because to them the beach is this dirty, polluted place, when actually there are dolphins and amazing wildlife in the rock pools and amazing fish out there, but people don't know about it. So this scheme is a £5 million scheme. It's been a long time in development, and we should have the final decision at the end of this year. That money is from the lottery. So in the UK, we can apply to lottery funding for conservation projects. They're very supportive of conservation projects. They have a dedicated fund within it that we can apply to. So I worked very closely with them to shape the bid, and then they agreed. They liked our idea, and they gave us £250,000 to further develop it. And that process is happening now, and then that will unlock a total of around £3 million from the lottery, and then the rest is from all of those partners that I've nagged and worked with over the past 2 years. So I think the thing I'm proudest of is getting us all to work together. We were all doing little bits, but not bringing kind of ourselves together for the same problem. And I think one of the biggest things I've learned is that we are greater than the sum of our parts when we work together. And partnership working really is the way forward, when we can put our own agendas and profile and badges aside and actually just realise we're working for the same goal. So most of my work now is in partnership working and trying to get us to join forces to tackle this extinction crisis that we're all facing. So it's getting funding is become I think probably the core of my work. So I run my own business now. Over the past 2 years, again, we're a couple. I want us to be in the same place, and the way we've found to do that is if one of us is location independent, so I can be where Daniel needs to be. And in that, I work with lots of different charities to help them either pull in funding or to evaluate their work to make sure their work is doing what they think it is, because actually in conservation, actually doing what you say you're doing is sometimes not as easy as it seems.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point though. So you procure the funding, and then you also kind of follow up to make sure that if it was a grant, all the grant requirements are kind of being met throughout the project process. Is that correct?
Yeah, so helping them design how they will evaluate. So evaluation is this thing that for most of us is this boring thing you do at the end of a project, when actually it's something you should think about whilst you're developing it in the first place. So understanding whether what you aim to do has actually had the impact that you wish it had. And all too often that's an afterthought, both in science and in conservation, when really that's so important. We say we want people to better understand the marine environment on their doorstep, but then we don't look at what that understanding level is beforehand, and we don't look at what that understanding level is afterwards. So how would we know if our work was the thing that made the change? We always have to think about that, and that's become a big part of what I do. So yeah, it's not the glamorous bit, but I think it does. It helps us prove we're making a difference.
It does. It can't be all field work. It's also about kind of bridging the gap between the field and the people that are affecting it, right? So that's important.
I think, and as well for me, like I thought conservation was just about counting things or going out and doing the glamorous field work. And actually, for me, particularly in the last 2 years, I've realized that conservation is about people. It's about changing attitudes. It's about changing minds. It's about empowering people to make a difference and realizing that individually we can do that. So much of my work now is much more engagement focused and working with communities that normally get forgotten, the people that we don't immediately turn to. And in my mind, we all have a role to play, and there's nobody who's not worth getting involved. We don't have to be trained scientists. We don't have to be, there is no one size fits all for what a conservationist looks like. And for me, that's how do we reach those people? How do we make them feel that actually their contribution is valuable and valued as well?
Absolutely. So could you give an example of the communities that you're talking about?
So for us, so the areas I've worked in, a lot of the communities, so the coastal communities, they are amongst the most deprived in the UK. They have been overlooked in so many ways. Within that, you have also these kind of other demographics. So I think we over focus a lot of our engagement activity on young people. So we take out school groups, and then we actually forget that there's a lot of adults who would also love the opportunity to do fun, interesting things in the place that they've grown up, but there isn't any kind of obvious, easy way to reach them. So it's thinking about using structures that are already in place, so infrastructure that's already in place, so going through clubs or whatever, but also creating those structures so that there are ways for those people to get involved. And within that, there's things like, so people who are disabled are not easily, we can't get them to the sea often as easily as we would able-bodied people. So a lot of our work is around using other means, so whether we can work with blind people using soundscapes, for example, whether we can work to get disabled people down and experiencing the marine environment by using modified equipment, so like big paddle boards and things like that, so we can actually get them involved in a way that previously there was too much of a barrier to do so. So it's not just about creating a one size fits all and expecting people to just turn up. It's about kind of tackling those barriers in a proactive way. And for me, that it's difficult, but it's possible. And I think it's all the more rewarding when you get people who otherwise would never have been able to experience this thing that the rest of us quite often take for granted.
Absolutely. And the more people that experience it, the more that they're going to want to help protect it. So
absolutely. You can only reach people through hearts. I think we traditionally have always expected that we just throw information, facts, figures at people, and that will be enough. We're seeing this level of extinction or this level of warming or whatever, and that might speak to people like me, people like Daniel, who are that way minded. But actually, if you can get people through their hearts instead of their heads, I think it motivates a whole lot quicker. And that ability to have a first-hand experience, for me, those first-hand experiences of the marine environment were so formative. They made me who I am, and it saddens me that people don't get that. And so it's a big part of my life work to make sure more people can.
Wonderful. And this is for both of you. What is your favorite part about your job?
So I think for me, it's that This is a bit of a typical scientist answer, but that opportunity to know something that no human has ever known before, that you can be the first to find something out. And I think marine biology certainly still has an awful lot of that to give. There is so much that we just don't understand yet, don't know. Even about some of the biggest animals on the planet, we know so little. We have such huge parts of that biosphere, the deep sea, that we know so little about. So that opportunity there is absolutely huge. And those moments don't come very often. There's an awful lot of hard work and time spent behind a computer before you get to that moment. And usually after that kind of all-important sort of number crunching and statistics before you get to that moment. But when you do, it's truly special. But I think what's possibly even a little bit better than that is when you get those moments and realize that bit of information could be important in how we treat the environment, how we manage the environment, and knowing that I can take that sort of information and hand it over to someone like Emily, and she can turn it into something useful and make good with it in the world.
I think for me, it's those rewarding moments where you have opened up the marine environment for somebody. And unfortunately, I don't get it that often because so much of my time is spent in a strategic way. I sit away in an office writing funding bids or writing strategies, or, I sit on a board of trustees, for example, and a lot of my time is, in the nitty gritty of thinking big. But actually, when I do get the chance to go out on the shore and see the product of all of that work, and you go out and you see somebody, and they're always different shapes, sizes, backgrounds, and you see them, they turn up with such low expectations, and then it's never anything massive. It's like a sea anemone or a particular bird, or showing them a crab claw or something, and you can just see that their mind's blown, that there is where they live is interesting and special, and you realize that it's your work that has enabled that barrier to be broken down, and hopefully there's a new relationship being formed with the marine environment. And I think for me, because I love the sea, particularly the UK sea, so much, to know that I've just one more person now also shares that is really, really special. So I think that's my favourite bit of my job, and makes all of the hours and hours and hours of funding bid stress worthwhile.
Yeah, that could be very magical and transformative to watch, actually, for you even. I could see that.
And to see it freshly through somebody's eyes. I think that the work I was doing in Indonesia, I was leading a field course, and I when I was trying to replay what was my favourite moment, and when you're the one who is showing students a sea turtle nesting, and I've seen it hundreds of times, and it's still amazing, no matter how many times you see it, but when you see it freshly through their eyes and the wonder, and it's just amazing. And you're the one that's opened that for them, and it is a true privilege to be able to teach and to share. And I'm very grateful for those moments.
Wonderful. Yeah. So that was actually something I wanted to circle back to. You also went to Indonesia. Yeah. And I did see your sea turtle nesting photo. It looks fantastic. So I'm assuming who went first? Daniel got this opportunity, and Emily, you found an opportunity to be with him. Is that correct?
No, so we applied separately, actually, same organisation, but we were at different sites, so we didn't see each other for the field season. We weren't in the same. We were both in Indonesia, but we were a long way, about 3 or 4 days travel apart, I think.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So I was at a marine site, so I was off the island of Borneo, on an island called Derawan Island. So this is the first year that the Operation Wallacea have been to Borneo. They've run a field site there. So they have a forest site and a marine site, and my role there was to lead a field course, so a marine ecology field course. So students would spend high school students would spend 1 week in the forest and then 1 week on the marine site. And the students would either learn to dive, or those who could already dive or for various reasons couldn't learn to dive, they would join my field course. So I would give them, so we would do a lecture, and then we would go and do an in-water activity, whether that was snorkeling or diving, on the subject that we'd just done. So we did everything from coral reef ecology to mangroves to seagrasses to sea turtles. And I would give 3 lectures a day, run 2 activities, and then in the evenings I would lecture all of the students, so whether or not they were learning to dive, on pretty much everything from reef fish, so they knew what they were looking at, to the future of coral reefs and how we can each play a part in conserving coral for the future. And also for me, a big draw of going in the first year is that it allowed me to kind of do what I do best, which is to scope out opportunities and help identify conservation and science priorities for the future. So I went with almost no idea what I was letting myself into. I'd never done anything like this before, but I can honestly say it was one of the most magical 6 weeks of my entire life. Not only because of the wildlife that I saw, I saw some amazing things, dived with some amazing creatures and on some truly beautiful coral reefs, but that ability to share those with young people with passion, people who wanted to make a difference and who I know will take a lot of what they've learned forward and make changes in their life and also go on and become advocates for the marine environment. I think that was just beyond what I expected out of that time, and I truly loved it, and I genuinely would recommend that experience to anybody who is interested.
How cool is that? So do either of you have plans to go back?
It's a distinct possibility.
I think we both would love to. I think it depends. It's very hard, our lives are, it's hard to make a month in advance plan sometimes, let alone a year, but I think we can safely say we're interested.
We're very interested. But that's an important point about careers in marine biology, is that most aspects of work are relatively short contracts. That there are permanent jobs out there, but they're very rare. And for some people, and I think we can be included in this, we quite like the fact that you have these short contracts and these short projects you go and work on. It keeps life really interesting. And that's really cool. You get to work on lots of different things, and we've usually got 3 or 4 different projects we're working on at once. But it does, of course, bring some challenges. If you are looking for a steady, stable income for, buying houses and things like getting married, then that can be a challenge in this career. But, it has its bonuses too. So
I think both versions of marine biology life are possible. There are permanent roles both in conservation and in science. Like Daniel said, they are rare. We can only talk really about the UK because that's where we have worked. We have worked elsewhere in the world too, but we have chosen this. We have chosen not to take permanent jobs. We have chosen this helter-skelter life because I for one get bored very quickly, and that's why I love working for myself. So I've worked for myself for 2 years now, and I love the variety that it brings. And it also means that when opportunities like Operation Wallacea come up, I can just go off to Indonesia for 6 weeks and not have to worry about my job or my income, because I know it's there when I get back. So I think for us has been about, it's taken us 10 years to find something that really works. And people don't always get it, your family don't always get it, your friends don't always get it, because their lives are very different. But actually both of us we don't want anything different. This is what we've chosen, and I love it.
Yeah, me too. It's an exciting way to live.
I mean, it sounds like really incredible opportunities that have come both your way. So I can see why you love it. What is something you wish you could go back and tell your younger selves?
Yeah, I think for me, it's just to stay true, to keep going and believe that it'll come good. I think there was definitely times, particularly when I tried really hard to do the normal thing. So I got a couple of jobs that I had, and they were very much office jobs and very much the well-paid, proper job I was meant to be doing at the age I was. And my family was very pleased for me, and they, they got it finally. And I was just miserable, and it just, I knew it wasn't for me, and I just desperately craved that colour and that adventure and the the element of discovery that I knew, that I thought I wanted from marine biology and was sure I wanted, but wasn't really sure how to make it happen. And it was about having the guts to walk away from that stable, good pensioned life and actually go after the thing that I knew I wanted. So I would say to people, if your heart is set on something and it's what you really want, then make it happen, because it is possible. Neither of us had any connections or any clue whatsoever when we started out, but it has just been sort of 10 years of trying, sometimes failing, and then getting to where we wanted to be and realizing there isn't a one size fits all for your life.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely not. And I think for me, it would be something like be patient. Building a career like this takes time. And we're only just getting to a stage now, even after 10 years, where we're able to sort of choose the work we do and pick the projects we want to get involved in. There's definitely been times over the past 10 years where, we're kind of have small bits of time where we've come back from an amazing project abroad, but then you have to go and work in a supermarket or something for a few months until the next project. And that's totally okay. You've got to build it up piecemeal. And just kind of trust that in time, if you keep going, you'll get to where you want to. And that certainly feels like, we've done that now.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite field story or stories to tell? Could be something crazy that happened or something really magical.
Do you have one?
I'm trying to pick one. That's the problem.
I think for me, my dolphin soup, which is far nicer than it sounds. When I was finishing up my master's, I was asked to lead some dolphin surveys for the Welsh government. And basically how it worked was somebody would spot dolphins, they would ring me, I would see if the boat was available, and then we'd just reactively go out and run a survey, because they were photo ID surveys rather than kind of abundance surveys. And this happened one Saturday afternoon, and I had nobody to take with me. I needed at least me and one person so I would take the photos, and I needed somebody to do record effort. So I asked Daniel if he would come with me, because needs must. So we rushed down to the port, which was on the other side of the island we lived on, and jumped on the boat and headed out into the bay that was, it ended up being the bay right where we lived. So we were in this very familiar place, and I was there with Daniel, and it was an amazing kind of clash of my work world and then my world, my personal life. Mm-hmm. And we were there, and we were surrounded by, I think there was 106 in the end, 106 bottlenose dolphins. And
oh my gosh.
So in the winter in the UK, they tend to form, the Irish sea population, they tend to form these kind of big super groups that are working together to forage. And so I was frantically taking photos, and I was recognizing some of them. It was really lovely. And then I remember we sort of, because they were quite fragmented over an area, we'd gone at a reasonably high speed over to another group that were over the other side of the bay. And whilst we were doing it, there was a group of juveniles who were really interested in the boat, and they were bow riding, but they were really leaping. So we were stood at the front, just the two of us and the skipper of the boat, and they were almost eye level. And we were sort of looking at each other, realizing how incredibly lucky we were that A, to be experiencing this, and B, that it was our job, that we were doing science, that we were in this incredibly insane experience right next to where we lived. And I realized that when else would you ever be eye to eye with this huge apex predator, which is what they are in our system. And they're 4 meters of bulk, wild animal, and they're as interested as you are in them, and you're just a couple of meters away from them. They're so close you can smell their fishy breath. It's just the most amazing experience. And to be able to share that with your partner, I think, was one of the best days of my life, for sure. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. It was home, it was dolphins, and it was you.
I've just realized, as Emily's telling that story, that the story I had in my head has, although a completely different situation, a completely different place, has so many incredible parallels. Okay. So I think you'll notice some similarities here. So one job that we both had together was working on a tiny island in the middle of the Atlantic called Ascension Island. So Ascension Island is a British overseas territory, really, really remote place. it's generally just somewhere that you might hop off to, maybe on the way to the Falklands. It has 2 large military bases. But anyway, this is a job that we applied for where we were managing a sort of a small turtle research group. And interestingly, it was a job that was advertised for one person, and we put in a sort of joint application that says, hey, you can have 2 for the price of 1. It's all right, we'll split the salary, but you get 2 scientists. And that they thought that was a real good bargain, so they took it. But part of our job when we were on the island was monitoring the nesting sea turtles. It has essentially has the second largest rookery of green sea turtles in the South Atlantic. And what we had to do was at night, when the turtles came ashore, we'd wait until a turtle was laying her eggs, and we'd put a temperature recorder in the middle of the nest, so we could track the temperature of the nest during that kind of incubation period. The reason being that impacts the sort of sex ratio of the eggs that are born. So the warmer temperatures creates females, and the lower temperatures creates male offspring. And there was this one particular night where we were on this beach that is just below some cliffs that is next to the big US Air Force base on the island. And it was just myself and Emily on the beach that night. And it was an incredibly beautiful, starry night, really clear. You could hear the waves crashing on the shore. Out over the ocean, there was some big storm clouds, some bright sort of flashes of lightning. And we were sort of laid on the beach. And on the beach, there is all these huge kind of sort of divots, big kind of holes in the sand where previous nests have been, and the turtles have dug holes. It kind of looks a bit like a World War I battlefield with all these kind of shell scrapes. So you're kind of hiding in one of these, waiting for a turtle to come up and dig a nest. They're incredibly easily spooked, so you have to be sort of stay out of sight and wait for them to start laying before you approach. And we were in one of these holes, and turtles certainly aren't the brightest of animals. They're incredibly interesting, majestic, but they're intelligent. They are not. And you find sometimes that they will crawl over each other and kind of get in the way of each other. And then this one particular night, one tried to sort of come over into our hole and narrowly miss us, not really realizing that we were there. And it was just amazing. Like Emily's story with the dolphins, you can smell them. You can tell from their smell that they eat seagrass. They have that kind of distinct kind of grassy smell, a bit like a cow. And they're really big, and it was just incredibly magic to be on this beautiful location, seeing this majestic animal, smelling and hearing this majestic animal go through this sort of cycle that turtles have been doing for millions and millions of years, and to be sharing that moment with the person that I love, and just realizing how incredibly lucky we were to have that kind of moment. And so some parallels with the stories there, but just a different time.
Absolutely. Both are such magical stories. I love it. Great job, guys. Great field stories. I'm sitting over here cackling because we have green sea turtles that nest on our beaches here in South Florida as well. Yeah. And I've done some sea turtle research as well. And they truly have craters as body pits. And I'm envisioning you guys kind of in your own little bunker of a green nest waiting for other ones to come up on the beach. It's so funny.
Yeah, just peeking over the edges.
So I have a couple more things before we kind of wrap up here. My favorite question to ask: what is your favorite sea creature and why?
Okay, I'm going to go for this one first.
Okay, good.
So for me, it's pretty easy. It's one of the deep water sharks that I studied during my master's. A shark called the ghost cat shark, Apresturus apiodes, its Latin name, and it's relatively small. Maybe it's only sort of 1.5 feet long, that kind of length. But it has this real pale, ghostly kind of color. It's kind of just an off-white color, and they have these magnificent reflecting eyes that helps them pick out even the slightest bit of light from any kind of bone. bioluminescent prey that it might be hunting in the deep water. And they are very slow moving in the water. They're not a fast species like we might think of, like a mako shark or something like that. But just that time I spent during my master's studying and trying to understand this species that so many humans will never ever come into contact with was incredible, and it left a sort of real profound sort of view of the ocean on me, and the fact that we know so little, and that every encounter we have with any species is a huge privilege. And certainly working with that species felt like a privilege to me, but it's something that has certainly transferred to every other animal I've come into contact with in the ocean. So that's my favorite, because it left its mark on me.
That is such a hard question, but I think my answer is probably the flat oyster, sometimes called the native oyster, because actually on their own they are kind of boring, but actually what they do for the marine environment, so they create these amazing reefs that become homes to hundreds of other species. They play such an important role in water quality, in filtering out pollutants and sediment. They play a role in carbon sequestration, so they're an important blue carbon habitat. And I think that they are a big part of my future work. Very much excited about the potential for habitat restoration in the UK, and they're one of the habitats, so the species and habitats that I would like to work more on. But I just think they are, on their own, like, what, an oyster, boring. But actually together they are so important. They are the superheroes of the sea, without doubt. And there's something that my attitude to has changed a lot over the last year as I've learnt more about them and the potential for what they could do for coastal and marine ecosystems in the places that I work. So yeah, previously I would have done your normal cuttlefish / dolphin, I think would have been my answer, but it's definitely moving towards oysters. So I think oysters are the future.
Wow,
that's awesome. I saw on your website that you were working with oysters and that you're an oyster girl, and I got really excited because I've also done work with oysters. We have a different species over here, but same concept. They filter massive amounts of water. They provide wonderful habitat. They're kind of like a wonderful cornerstone for habitat restoration. And so I do have a little soft spot for the little shelled dudes as well.
Yeah, I think we have a lot to learn. You guys in the States are, light years ahead of us on oyster restoration, but I think it's something we're catching up on in the UK, and I think it's going to be a big part of UK conservation in the next couple of years, sort of 5-year period. I think we're going to be doing a lot more of restoration, of rewilding our seas, and it's much needed. Our seas have a huge amount of potential, but they are very much degraded shadows of what they once were, and I'm excited about playing a part in helping them get back to what they should be.
I always like to do a conservation ask at the end of the episode. Do you guys have something that you would like for the audience to kind of take away from this, or go out and do or see?
Yes. So I think for me, for both of us actually, we would encourage anybody listening to quite simply to get outside. So if you live near the sea, then go to the seaside, go rock pooling, tide pooling, get a mask and snorkel if you can, and just have a look what's there, even if that's just sitting on the rocks and watching the crabs or the seabirds. If you don't live by the coast, get out to the river, to the lake, to the park, to the canal, wherever it is, and just take a few minutes to see what is around you, because I guarantee there will be more than you expect. I think we are conditioned, particularly in the UK, to think that cool wildlife is somewhere else. I certainly thought I had to go to tropical places to see dolphins, for example, never knowing that actually we have them right here in the UK until I went to university. And I think it's not only good for you, it's good for your health, your well-being, your mental health to take time to notice nature. It's also a really important part of becoming a good conservationist. If you can see what's around you, it helps you not only connect with your mind, but with your heart to what's there. And if we have experienced that stuff firsthand, then we are more likely to change our behaviour and become those advocates, those voices for nature that I think a lot of us who work in conservation, we need to do it ourselves, not only encourage other people to do it. So I know for my own mental health at times when it's been challenged, taking that time to enjoy wildlife has been a huge part of my recovery. So please do take the time to go out and have a look. And if there's a local wildlife organisation where you are, just have a look at what they're doing and see if they might need some help. So if you can volunteer a couple of hours, whether it's an hour on a Saturday morning or, one afternoon a month, then you don't have to be a scientist, you don't have to be a conservationist, you don't have to have a degree, any of those things to go and help. They need all kinds of skills. They need people from all walks of life to be able to bring their knowledge, experience and perspectives to this conservation fight that we all have on our hands. So if you are able to do that, then please think locally as well as nationally, because I'm sure they'll be grateful of your time.
Great advice.
Yep. Just want to second that. That's exactly what we want people to do. Get outside, appreciate what is just on your doorstep. No matter where we live on this planet, we all have incredible wildlife. We just need to take the time to look and to listen.
Notice it. Yeah.
If listeners want to, where can they find you guys?
So we are on Instagram. We are at marinebio.life. We also have a Facebook page, which is also called Marine Biology Life. And we're on Twitter, which is Marine Biology Life. But our handle is Marine Biology L. On Twitter, and you can find your way to both of us from those places. So we also have our own personal accounts, but you can find us on those main things. My name is Emily Cunningham and Daniel is Daniel Moore.
Fantastic. I'll put a link in the show notes for anybody that wants to check those out.
Yeah, thank you. And we're always happy to hear from people. If you have questions or you want any advice, particularly if you're UK based and want advice about the UK education system or finding a job or where to look for jobs or anything like that, please do feel free to send us a message. We genuinely are happy to help.
Yeah. Or equally, if you've been out and seen something cool in the sea, just let us know. We love to hear good, cool things as well.
Yeah, living vicariously while we're at our desks.
Absolutely. Well, thank you guys. Do you have anything else that you'd like to add?
Marine biology is the best job in the world. It's not easy. It is hard. It takes tenacity, but it's worth it. So if you're thinking about it and aren't sure whether it's for you, just give it a go. I don't think you'll regret it.
No. And if you want that extra challenge to your career, do it as a couple.
Yeah. Doubly hard, but doubly rewarding.
It is, yeah.
Wonderful. Well, thank you both so much for being on. It was awesome chatting with you.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you for listening to today's show. I'd love to hear any insight you've gleaned. Leave a comment over in the show notes or send me an email over at marinebio.life. If you enjoyed this episode, subscribe and, of course, share with your friends. Keep after your dreams and making waves in your community. One person can make a difference. One more thing. Have you checked out the So You Want to Be a Marine Biologist Patreon page? Patreon is a marvelous site that allows creators to be supported by their audience, you. We have some ocean-tastic categories for you to join, from foundational phytoplankton to enigmatic sea turtle. There's some exciting bonuses on there, from shout-outs on the podcast to bonus episodes that only you will get. Your support helps to create more episodes about ocean science and conservation. For more information on how you can be an official member of the Marine Bio Life pod, please visit patreon.com/marinebiolife. Thank you for listening to today's episode. If you enjoyed it, please take a moment to subscribe to our channel. It helps other ocean enthusiasts find us. And we'll catch you next time on the So You Want to Be a Marine Biologist podcast.